Aloha, folks, and welcome to another edition of Five Questions, which appears right here on News Radio 830 KHVH, KHVHradio.com, and, of course, log on to HawaiiReporter.com. And you'll be able to listen in as we chat with Congresswoman Colleen Hanabusa today. Colleen, aloha to you.
Aloha, Rick. Always good to see you. It's good to see you in person, though.
I know. Well, even telephonically, we kind of see each other.
That's right.
Listen, I know time is of the essence, as always. We always like to cut right into it. So let's jump right on in with question number one. Colleen, recently, of course, you announced you chose not to run for Senate in 2012. Can you tell us why?
You know, it was a difficult decision because of the fact that, as with all situations, you have supporters who tell you you must run and people who to ask you to consider whether this is the right time or not. But the decision I had always said was going to be made with the best interest of the people of Hawaii and the people of the 1st Congressional District at heart. And that's what made the decision very difficult, because the one side of it was that, you know, you would have a total of potentially 3 seats at play. And there would be an issue of the stability of a representation in Congress. And for me, what it came down to was that it was not the time. We've got difficult issues and difficult challenges ahead of us. And no matter what, I couldn't see not having anyone, as little as my, quote, seniority would be at the end of 2012, it still didn't seem like that was the right thing to do. So in the long run, the decision was really that I just couldn't put it ahead of anything else. The fact that we need, not only for the whole state, but for the congressional district as well. That you know, I just got in there, and this is something that I need to see through.
There we go. Appreciate the response as always. Question number 2 for Colleen. This is tied somewhat to your election previously. Simple question is, how's the house hunting going?
Pretty, as you and I talked. Matter of fact, that's where I'm headed for very shortly. It's going very well, as I had told you earlier when we were in person on your show. Was that, you know, we are in escrow on our home, and in addition to that, we do have another backup buyer as well. So we're pretty certain that we will be homeless.
Oh my!
Our houses before the end of the year. So the house hunting has escalated even more. So I'm scheduled to see. I went over the weekend, and I'm scheduled to see another 4 today, and hopefully, one of them will be the house.
Wow. Well, listen, I know, and again, just as a quick reminder, tell us, it's not that easy trying to sell a house in this market, is it?
No, it isn't. And you know, and when you have a house like as you know, you've been there, Rick. The house is something that John put a lot into it in terms of literally physical labor. I mean, it's just a lot of work. So to get to the point where you're you're willing to give it all up, but you're not willing to just give it away either. And this is a difficult market.
We're talking with Congresswoman Colleen Hanabusa. It's 5 questions here on KHVH Radio and HawaiiReporter.com. You know, it's been question number 3, Colleen. It's been pretty quiet here at home in regard to rail funding. As a Congresswoman, can you give us some insight? Will the federal government, to your knowledge, support our rail project with the FFGA to the tune of about $1.5 billion? Because this is still continually being cited by supporters of rail. From what you know, is the money there, and will we get it?
Well, I think there's 2 parts to that question. One is that if you think that there is a hunk of money out there, like 1 point some odd billion, whatever that, just sitting there right now, I think the way to really correctly respond to that is that the rail funding is expected in various increments. So I believe that the funding that is supposed to be available in this go-around is there. And the reason why is because of the commitment of people like Secretary LaHood when he came here, is that, you know, it is we don't have earmarks anymore, as we all know. But notwithstanding the lack of earmarks, we also realized that when everyone said no earmarks, the thing that we then transferred that authority to was the administration. So the administration then decides what projects will be funded. So when they come out committed to a project, you can probably go to the bank on that. So in terms of the immediate funding, yes, I believe that it's there. And usually once a project starts, it's my understanding that they will continue it lacking any kind of major issue that we're faced with. So I would have to say that, to the best of my knowledge, yes, it is there, and it is something that's committed. People are committed to into the future as well.
I'd like to turn with question number 4 to more of a political question, and that has to do with a recent report that noted that you had supported 95% of votes with Democrats, while your counterpart, Mazie Hirono, even more so at 98%. And I guess the question would be, with such appears to be partisan voting along party lines, how can this translate, or how does it translate into the working together in a bipartisan way, which has been espoused even as recently as today by President Obama?
Well, Rick, I think when you look at the total numbers, and I think certain people have dissected that. As you probably know, one of the issues that we all contend with is the fact that many bills are not controversial. And and if people would look at, for example, and we've commented on this when we looked at the state legislature, a lot of bills go through without controversy. So I guess the next analysis to that question would be, look at what bills are controversial, quote unquote, and then decide then as to how people have voted and whether the vote is one that, it then shows whether you have bipartisan support or not. I think that when you looked at the differences in how we have voted, you will find that I think I voted with the Republicans on certain issues a lot more times than Mazie has. And a lot of it comes to the issue of what is the subject matter of the bill. Like for myself, you will find, I think, that where we differ the most is probably on military matters, because I sit on military affairs. And and as a result of that, Rick, a lot of it is that when you sit on these committees and you've had the opportunity to be part of that discussion, I believe what you do then is that whatever you may have issues with, you then have to weigh with those other parts of the bill that you decide that you agree with. So I think when you look at those kinds of numbers, the next question will be, how many of those votes are really at issue between the two parties? Because, for example, one of the things that I think you would probably appreciate is that, we had this whole discussion when we began on transparency and openness in government and the changes in our rules. I will tell you that many of the major bills that we've had to deal with, we begin with suspension votes, which is to suspend the rules. And yes, I vote against suspension bills because I feel that if we put in rules, then those rules should be followed. So there's a series of those kinds of votes that you will have, and Democrats tend to vote against the suspension rule because it's like almost every major bill, the rules have to be suspended before it can be brought to the floor. But I have gone before the Rules Committee 3 times to ask that they consider certain amendments that I'm proposing, and Rules Committees have taken positions that, even if we may suspend the rules, say the rules are not applicable, that they have a right to say certain things on amendments. And for 3 times, the Rules Committee has permitted my amendments to hit the floor. So, it's a process issue, and like I said, there are many votes which are not controversial. Like here, when Sam and I used to come before you, when we would talk about votes, we would give you exactly how many that anyone didn't go with. And, we had the consent calendar in the Senate, and, most of those bills, 50-something% would go through by consent. And it didn't mean that if they were argued on the floor, which meant that if the bill was flagged and in fact somebody was objecting to it or somebody wanted to speak to it. And we also had issues regarding whether Sam was for and Fred was against, or whether the Democrats were for and against themselves. So it's not a simple thing to just simply take a round number like that.
Talking with Congresswoman Colleen Hanabusa, 5 questions, and we're actually to our final question already, which is, Colleen, in 2012, given what we've seen with the administration thus far, would you support President Barack Obama for re-election, or is there somebody else that you'd like to see run?
No, I believe that I will support President Obama, primarily because I don't know anyone else who is running on my side.
Right.
And you know, I believe that he has had a very difficult presidency, and in terms of it, we may not follow it as closely. We meaning just the general public, because as people know, usually election-related matters, it doesn't become really relevant until election year, for example. But, you know, President Obama has had a major, a difficult challenge. And a lot of it is, you know, though people have accused him of being the one that did TARP and all these other different things, it wasn't really under President Obama's presidency. I tell people, you remember when they all rushed back during campaign season to vote for that, and everyone voted for it. And it's just it's a matter of what it's taken to get the nation back on its feet. And it's taken a lot longer than I'm sure even the president anticipates that it should have. And as you can tell, you know, we're not quite where we all wanted to be or expected to be. And those issues are going to be rightfully debated during the presidential election, and we'll have to see how everyone views it. We have many candidates who have had roles themselves in the Congress itself, and now that at least two of the candidates, the Republicans that are part of the Congress, and they will take and I'm sure distinguish their records as well. So it's a wonderful debate that I think that we will all listen to, and we'll see where everyone comes on.
I know. Just a quick sidebar is that even rumblings within the AFL-CIO with a contemplation of perhaps not endorsing the president, which would just seem to be just completely out of left field, but it also serves as perhaps a stimulus for someone else to maybe jump in the race, that there could be a primary challenge to the president. If Secretary of State Clinton, who you supported in the previous election, jumped in, would you be back on her side again?
You know, I've always been a supporter of Secretary Clinton, and Secretary Clinton has said she will not run.
And there you go.
But you know, as you know, Rick, I've always been a supporter of Hillary, and it is you know, people know that very well, and let's all face it. I mean, you know, she's done an amazing job as Secretary of State, and I believe that many of the president's numbers, you know, when they divide up the approval rating in the area that she is quote credited with, you know, he's looked upon as doing a very good job in that area, and it's the one area that people anticipated that the president would not do well in. So, you know, you can't change people like myself who supported someone like Hillary in the past, but luckily, I think she's not putting us in that position. But that would be a tough one.
Well, the most relevant question now up until this point, this is a brief one, is that John Boehner, is he as orange in person as he is on television?
You know, he. I think, you know, all partisan politics aside, I think that he has had as difficult a time as any of the other leaders have had. And I think that he's not able to get out as probably he's wanted to. So my response is he looks normal to me.
Okay.
But, you know, and I think that's something that I wish the people would look at. Is is not his color, as you pointed out.
No.
But it really is that he is also having a difficult time, and that is why the debt ceiling has that super committee. And as you and I discussed, and I've said this publicly many times, the super committee to me is a sad reflection of by all of our leaders that we're abdicating so that the Congress can only vote up or down. And the reason is because I think they all realize how important the issues are, but also how difficult it would be if everyone was allowed to tweak it along the way, and that's why they created the super committee. And if you look at the bill, as you and I discussed, most of it are rule suspensions, the thing I talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is suspending our rules. And, even cloture and everything else is in there so that you are voting straight up or down. And the president vetoes, if the president vetoes and, we're unable to override that veto, then let me tell you, it goes into sequestration, which takes it out of everyone's hands. It's going to cut.
That part is true. That part is very true. And we're going to watch with great interest, rapt interest. And as one of our congressional delegation, hopefully we can do this again soon.
I really enjoyed it. And again, thank you, Rick. It was wonderful being on the show. And of course, having Sammy call in from Seattle.
I know, that was definitely a highlight. No doubt about it.
That's right. And I hope the listeners remember us.
Oh, believe me. Based on the response, no problem. Well, listen.
Thank you so very much.
All the best and everything. We thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks, Rick, and thanks, Joe. Bye-bye.
Bye now.